In this video I will create an ambient soundscape and I will use my MIDI controller with motorized faders, the Icon platform M+, to perform this soundscape. So in this video I will create an ambient soundscape and I will use a sound library that is free to use from the BBC called Sound Effects on bbcrewind.co.uk as a source of some of the material that I will use in this soundscape. Apart from these sound effects, I will also use a synthesizer in Ableton to create different chords that I can mix in between. If you have seen any of my previous videos on ambient soundscapes, I have used the Icon platform M+ MIDI controller that has motorized faders to kind of perform this soundscape. So what it means is that I will create very long loops or tracks in Ableton, and then I will record the automation live for the entirety of the soundscape. So I will mix basically on the go. And in this way, this is a very fun way to perform and to find the balance between the different tracks in your soundscape. Let's start at the beginning and let's go to BBC Sound Effects library and let's see if we can find some sounds that I can use for my soundscape. I will link to this sound effects library in the description. So this is the website. As you can see, there's also a mixer mode. You can create your own soundscape directly on the website, but of course we want to do it in Ableton. So here you see all the categories. I'm thinking one nice sound to have is of course something with nature. So you have, this is the browser, it says 17,000 different sound files. So that is definitely enough to find something here. I'm just looking at the waveforms. I want something that's not very rhythmic maybe, but more just constant volume. Something like this. Let's download it. Let's find something else. Maybe from the machines category. Something that has some kind of rhythm in it. This says train yard. Let's download it. Atmosphere, that could be a nice category. Exterior atmosphere, spheres, city park on a breezy day. That sounds very good for a soundscape. And then we want one more sound. Let's go to electronics. Very percussive sounds. Oh, maybe this one, fax receiver. Telephones, answering machines. Yeah, let's do that. So now that I downloaded these 4 sounds from the BBC Sound Effects library, let's go to Ableton and import them. And let's play around with it and see if we can make some kind of ambient atmospheric bed to put our chords on. So let's start with the first sound. I want to warp it and also put a loop on because we're only going to use a small piece of this entire recording. We can limit it to here so we don't have any clicks. So this is a nice sound. It's very sort of noisy. There's no melodic information. Let's put a low cut EQ. It's 8.5 bars, the loop length. So it's good that it's not an even amount so that we can have different loop lengths so that you don't hear when it starts again. I'm thinking to filter out a lot of the low frequencies. Maybe around 550 Hertz. And then we want to add some effect. So I'm thinking first to add a bit of an auto pan or a tremolo actually. So put the phase on 0 and then maybe put a rate at a quarter notes and just add like 20-25%. To create a bit of movement. Maybe cut it off at 1000 Hertz. Don't do a tremolo, but actually create an auto pan and to create the stereo spread. So we're going to lower the rate, increase the amount a bit. So it goes slowly from left to right. And especially if we lower this in the mix, this could be a really nice sort of bed in the background. I'm happy with this first layer. Let's go to the second sound and let's see what we can do to it. So the second sound was this one. So I'm thinking after the percussive part. Also here we want to cut some of the low frequencies because it's very rumbling otherwise. Since we already have a continuous sound on track 1, for this one maybe a little bit more rhythmic. So I'm going to add, in this case, a tremolo. So it's an auto pan with the phase on 0, rate on 1/16 and the amount quite high, so we can kind of break up the sound. So that is quite nice, but it's very static. It breaks it up all the time. So we either want to modulate the amount of the tremolo or the rate of the tremolo, or perhaps both. So we create a bit of movement so it doesn't feel like a machine gun going off exactly the same all the time. So let's add a LFO and experiment a little bit what sounds good. So let's start off with modulating the rate. And of course a bit slower. And maybe it goes from 10 to 90%, so it's not the fastest and not the slowest. And then maybe we want the second LFO to modulate the amount so that the amount is also fluctuating. And that one we want to go from 50 to 80. And that goes twice as fast, so 0.4 Hertz. And as you can hear now, there's much more movement in the sound. It breaks up, but then it fluctuates how it breaks up. It's not random, it's a sine waveform, but at least there's movement. So together with the first layer, it sounds like this. So I'm quite happy with that. Let's go to sound number 3 and see what we can do with that. So this gets really loud. Let's use the first part of the sound. So this sound is already quite broken up. Let's do a low cut EQ and then add a delay to create some more interest. Filter the output. Maybe shorten the loop even more. Maybe add a little bit to the beginning, so more silence basically. The trick is with creating these soundscapes that are very textural to be very subtle with each layer so that it's more about the total composition of all the layers together than the individual sounds. That's why starting with some silence here is okay. There's a delay on it anyway, so it will be more continuous. Let's see if this works with the other layers. Maybe we can pan them a little. All right, on to sound number 4. another quite noisy atmospheric sound. So maybe we're actually going to focus on the very beginning of the sample, which is just sort of white noise. Stretch it out twice, make it longer. Maybe stretch it out another time. So pitch it down 1 octave. So it's a very subtle noise layer, but maybe we can add some effects to it to enhance it. I'm thinking some reverb. And if we reverse the sample. And then let's crop it and add some extra space after the sample, so there's actually no information, but it's just to create a bit more space. And now together with the other layers. So I think this could work as a constant layer. So maybe we kind of move the last one to the first track in Ableton. So then I can leave the fader on my MIDI controller untouched. So that layer could just be constant throughout the track. And the other 3 layers I can vary in volume and of course the chords. And speaking of chords, that is the next part to create the soundscape. So now we have the atmospheric bed. We have 4 different sounds that doesn't have any melodic information. So now it's time to create a patch in the drift synthesizer and put down some chords. All right, so let's start with the drift synthesizer. I loaded up here on a MIDI channel and I want to create a sound that's kind of broken up. Instead of having a continuous sound or a very short sound, I want to fluctuate it. So I'm going to modulate the sustain of the amplitude envelope. So I'm going to go to audio effects, get an LFO, modulate the sustain, not all the way to 0, but from maybe, let's start with this. And then I want to randomize that. So I'm going to put another LFO behind the first LFO and then put that on random and then map that to the rate. Lower it to maybe 30%. From 5 to maybe 35%. Let's add some resonance and change the filter. Let's add some chords so we can see how this will sound. Don't need to add noise because it's already quite noisy, this soundscape. So let's add some play with the oscillators. And let's add a tremolo to break it up even more. And let's also add a little bit of distortion. Maybe we can use the pedal. but lower the dry wet quite a lot, so you don't completely blow out the sound. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this sound. It's very sort of simmering sound. It's kind of hesitating, but I think it could be nice for this. So the next step is to actually create 3 more chords. So I'm going to delete the other empty drift MIDI channels and just duplicate this channel. So we have 4 channels now with the same sound, and then going to the next channel to create a different chord. So the sequence I'm going to program, the chords I'm going to use is, it's in D minor. It's D minor, B flat, F, C. So this is going to be a B flat like this. This one is going to be an F, and the last one is going to be a C. D minor, then a B flat, an F, and a C. And they all use the same patch in drift that I just created. So that's the idea. I can now bring in these layers as I want. I have the 8 faders in front of me, so I can just mix and match those layers. And that's exactly what I'm going to do now. So extend the loop lengths to a minute and a half, and then I will perform it and you can hear how it could sound. And the fun thing is with using the technique like this by performing with the faders, that every time you do it, it's going to be a different composition, basically a different arrangement. So the first thing I'll do is to extend these clips to like maybe a minute and a half, turn off loop, and now I will also record the automation. That was a minute and a half, very short. It's so much fun to play around with it, and it takes some time to get used to it and to kind of understand what kind of material you have. So this was a very quick kind of rundown of that. You can spend much more time fine-tuning the sounds and finding a good arrangement in this way. As you can see here in Ableton, if you look at the volume of each track, if you show it in the automation lane, you can see basically what I did and where I bring in sounds and took them out. So you see there's overlap with the first 4 layers. They play together, but then the chords I try to play only 1 chord at a time. I hope this was inspiring. I will link down to the BBC Sound Effects archive in the description. I will also link to another video I made about using this technique with a MIDI controller. So if you're interested, you can check that one out too. As always, keep making music. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.